In August, I set the children in Primary 4 to 7 a challenge. Can they make a television programme about our living community? There's a wealth of historical information linked to our school and also a wide range of organisations and members of the community with whom I wanted the children to engage. The film you're about to watch showcases the learning journey the children took from August to December. I hope you enjoy it.
Primary 1, 2, 3 in the little class and primary 4, 5, 6, 7 in the big class. There are 24 people in the school. The head teacher is Mrs. Mears. The little class teacher is Mrs. Mia and the secretary is Mrs. McLaren and the assistant is Mrs. Burns.
The Muckle House was built way back after the 1745 rebellion. It was made to house the linen weavers from Spitalfield in London. Spitalfield used to be called Red Gull. It was changed to Spitalfield when the weavers arrived.
Welcome to Glendelvine Primary School, Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Bewis. Thank you for helping us today with our living community topic. We'd like to ask you some questions. Thank you so much.
When was Spitalfield built?
Spitalfield was built started in 1766 and went on from there. I think it was finished about 1769, 1770, in about there. It was built in different phases, like they built one side and then another side, and then the side with the Muckle House until it was all finished.
The Muckle House is a fine Scottish name for big house. Muckle, meaning big.
Why was Spitalfield built?
Well, the man that stayed down in Delvin in a big house, he decided that he would build it for all the weavers in the area that were going to stay there. And he built all the houses for them to stay in, and he built the Muckle House as well. And for some of the farm workers, they came to live in that as well, because the original village, some of it was away up on the top banking. You know what I mean? Yes.
Behind Ethan's house.
Behind Ethan's house. So they brought the people from up there down into the village as well. And that was the reason it was built.
Where did people work?
Well, most of them worked in the houses, working on looms, weaving. I've got a picture of a loom here. And most of them had that in their houses.
The women were weavers, and then a lot of the men worked on the farms, out and about. And that was the main work that there was.
Most of them had cows in what they called their backyard, and every morning someone would come along and blow a horn, and all the cows would be brought out and taken to a field outside the village. Some had cows, some had pigs, and most of them would have had hens to keep them going. And huge big gardens behind the villages full of vegetables. And that would have fed them all too.
What year was the flood?
Well, the first flood was in January, February 1990, and the second one was about the same time in 1993.
And the water came right over about 2 miles away, broke the banks and came right up through the village and cut off the village from one side to the other. We couldn't get across to the shops or anything, and they couldn't get over to go to their work or things like that. And it flooded right through, right round the back of the bowling club So it was really bad. 2 years running.
It was just like the river running round about Spitalfield. But it just lost its way.
Thank you very much for your time.
At Round Bank there dwells a pair called Black with her daughter Anne. Next door to them stays Christine Scott with her girls and her man. At the far end dwells Marjorie, likewise the wooden top. At Sandy McLeany's garage, where there is a bus stop. Jenny Scott and Sandy, he keeps a joiner shop. At Willie's Lanes, a wee garage. There's lots of motor stop. Across the road there dwells the Look, with Pauline and Martin, with Wall and Mrs. Donaldson, Mary, Dave and Nellie Lowe.
Next door lives Fanny Anderson with John Anderson, her Joe. Alpinade of Leyland, they tend to shop, you know. Next door to them there was Bella Steele, Annie Scott and Billy, her good man. Across the road dwells Dick O'Brien, whose son is the single man. At Peter Farms, the paper, there's Mrs. Robin, Mrs. Scott, Meg Law and Daly Elder. Queen Philosopher Painter, his name is Jackie Miles. With Brandon Graham and his wife Jane, they give us lots of smiles.
They also live the Stevensons, with their new neighbour Mrs. Finlay. She stays next door to the Andersons, who used to be in McKinley. Along the road dwells Mrs. Todd, with Colin, her good man. Sandra, Dave and Karen live in the caravan. In Scotland born and Perthshire bred, of years lived quite a few. The village I reside in, to me is simply grand, and the people dwelling in it are the finest in the land. We share each other's pleasures in everything we do, our happiness and treasures, and we share our sorrows too.
There's Mrs. Lane and Betty Bunty and Geordie too. Old Jeanie at the corner, Sam Grant and neighbour Drew. Then there's the Beards and Mrs. Clark with Dot and Dennis Lane. Their garden is a picture place, and Will Lawson's is the same. Across from Will lives Dorothy, Wally and wee Gavin. They own a little corgi dog who has the name of Kim. There's Mrs. High and Mrs. Lowe. Next to them, Mr. Loudon, his son I cannot name. Then Hugh and Marine High, who's often far fae home.
Up to Planting Brae we go to meet with Jessie Cross. 2 girls has she and a wee boy Gordon is the boss. Next door to them with Bill and Jean, Anne, Dick and all their clan. Then Ida, Alan and Johnny Brune and Andrew Brune her man. Last of all we have our Bobby, his name is Tavendale. He has a wife and 2 wee boys and a dog which wags her tail.
So now, my friends, I have today, I've havered long enough. I am quite sure that one will say, what a lot of mush. I am proud to say that I am Scots in all I say and do. Historical Fact Time!
A salmon was caught on the 7th of October 1922 at 6:15 p.m. It was caught by Georgina Ballantyne. It was caught in Caithness but kept going to Stanley. It weighed 64 pounds. She caught 3 other fish, and in total they weighed 63 pounds. The fish was a world record, but was beaten by a catfish that weighed 66 pounds.
Our living community and how we started.
We asked ourselves these questions.
What is a community? What happened in our community in the past? What is there in work in our community?
We wrote to members of our community, and this is some of the replies.
Jean Paul.
Dot Pierce and Mrs. Hayes.
Peggy.
The cricket club.
Sir Gavin Lyle.
The bowling club.
Haley's granny.
Diane and Dawn.
During this topic, people came in and we went places to see people's skill.
Mr. and Mrs. Moran came to visit us and we learned about dyeing and spinning linen. We visited Perth Museum and we learned to weave different grasses.
This is just the start of our journey through our community.
Welcome to Glendelvine School, Jeannie Paul. Thank you for helping us today with our living community topic. We'd like to ask you some questions. What do you do at the WRI?
Oh, well, we do lots of things. Well, we meet once a month. Well, that's another question. And they start off with welcoming everybody, and then if anybody has said an apology, well, I record that, do the minutes of the previous meeting, and then do any business we have. And then we usually have either a speaker or a demonstrator. It could be a bakery or a cookery competition. It could be a craft of some kind. It could be a nature program, or it could be something from abroad. People been abroad doing something for that. Somebody from Trading Standards in Perth, or there's another lady who comes to tell us about all the scams that you get on the phones and through the post and so on. Up to now we do lots of sport as well. We have Olympics, Rural Olympics every year, which includes darts, skittles, miniature golf, what else? Throwing the beanbag into a bucket, a hockey stick, moving a hockey stick round objects, things like that. That's our Rural Olympics.
When does the WRI meet?
We meet on the first Tuesday of every month at 7:15 actually, on a Tuesday night.
Where does the WR meet?
We meet in Capeth Village Hall. Occasionally in Spitalfield Hall, if there's something special where we've better heating, better lighting. We are going to Spitalfield Hall this January because our speaker is going to speak about climbing Everest. So we're making that an open meeting. We're hoping Haley's dad and mum come, for example, to hear about this man who climbed Everest. He's going to tell us all his experience in that expedition that he had. So we're meeting in Spitalfield Hall that night. But normally it's in Capeth Hall.
Why do you enjoy the WRI?
Well, it's something quite local, meeting all my friends, and you're learning all the time. There's always something that you learn from your speaker or your demonstrator or whatever. Then you travel about to other areas and make friends in other areas. It's just, when I started at first, it was just to get out for one night a month. The men seemed to get out to everything they want to go to, but the women didn't get out to anything because they brought up their families. So to join the WRI was the only way we got a night out, because we didn't drive in those days either. The women were not supposed to be driving. They were just in the house.
Historical fact time!
Lots of children were evacuated and came to Glendelvine. There were no enemy attacks or bombing in Spitalfield. During the World War, there was a teacher called Miss Mears, and the children at the school had to stay in the same room as the rabbits got skinned.
Welcome to Glendelvine Primary School, Miss Hayes. Thank you for helping us with our living community.
When did you start sewing?
I started sewing when I was about 5 at infant school, the same as all of you have done, and I learnt on the fabric that we use here called binker with little holes in it. And I made a needle case and a bookmark, exactly the same as you've done here, when I was 5.
How did the sewing club start at school?
Well, I discovered that you weren't doing sewing at school, and I asked the head teacher at the time whether I would be allowed to come along and do a sewing club. And she said that would be a very good idea, and that's how we started. And that was 2 years ago.
Why do you like helping us at Glendelvine?
I like being involved with the school. I think you're all very, very good children, and you all seem to enjoy it very much. So if children enjoy something, it's always nice to be involved. And the head teacher is very happy for me to come along, so I'll continue as long as she wants me to come along and do sewing with you.
Historical fact time!
It was originally called Glendelvine Pupil School and opened in 1927. Glendelvine School was named after Glendelvine Estate. At Glendelvine you had to stay until you were 14.
Thank you for inviting us to Capeth Church. We'd like to ask you some questions to help us with our living community topic.
That's fine, you're very welcome. It's lovely to have you all here.
When was Capeth Church built?
Well, I think it was 1798, as it says on the stone outside, as you looked up earlier on when we were outside. But that was just this main bit. This other bit over there was added on later, and so was the tower.
Why was Capeth Church built?
Well, there was a community here, a few houses, and also the estates where people lived, and they were people who had a faith, and they wanted to go somewhere to worship God. So the community got together, probably with the local landowner. I don't know who that was in those days, but maybe Mrs. Forbes does. And they got together and decided to build a church. But there has been a church in and around Capeth since the 9th century, so that's 800 and something. So that's a long, long time ago, over 1,000 years. Okay.
What events take place in the church?
Well, every Sunday, of course, we have a service in the morning at 11:15, except that on the first Sunday of the month, when the service takes place at Cluny Church, which is another building that this congregation owns. So most of the time on a Sunday there's a service here at 11:15 in the morning. So that's the main thing that happens. There are weddings, usually on a Saturday. Sometimes there are funeral services when somebody dies who is maybe a member or somebody very well known and who needs a very big space for lots of people to have a service, so they come to Capeth Church to have their service.
How long have you been the minister?
I've been the minister since the 8th of March 2011, so that's just about 2.5 years. I've been in Capeth and Cluny, and I have another church called Kinclaven, but that's a little bit further away.
Thank you for helping us with our community.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
This is our display of our learning, and our topic is our living community.
These are paintings of the school in 2013.
These are pictures of the pupils of Glendelvine Primary School in 2013. This is the school in 2005. This is a picture of our school in 1913. This is the school in 1973.
This is Spitalfield Village Green in the 1900s.
These
these are the reports we did on our living community.
This is the first Capeth Bridge that was built in 1904.
We are here together, together, together. We are here together.